In a world where magic intertwines with the mundane, the shadows of darkness loom ever larger. The year is 1927, a time of both enchantment and peril, as the wizarding community grapples with the looming threat of Gellert Grindelwald, a dark wizard whose vision of supremacy over non-magical beings ignites fear across continents. His enchanting charisma draws followers to his cause, whispering promises of power and freedom, while the streets of Europe tremble at the prospect of his rise. In the bustling heart of Paris, filled with the whispers of spells and the shimmer of hidden creatures, Newt Scamander, a gentle magizoologist with a heart full of compassion, finds himself unexpectedly pulled into a web of intrigue and danger. The colorful cafes and shadowy alleys of the city conceal secrets, and every corner holds the potential for magic or menace. With the escape of Grindelwald from captivity, the delicate balance of the magical world hangs by a thread, teetering on the brink of chaos. As old friends reunite, tensions flare and passions ignite. Newt is joined by Tina Goldstein, a determined aura haunted by her past, and Jacob Kowalski, a muggle with a heart of gold yearning for his lost love, Queenie Goldstein. Each step they take leads them deeper into a labyrinth of loyalty, betrayal, and unexpected alliances. Their journey is fraught with danger, as they encounter magnificent beasts, hidden enchantments, and the dark allure of Grindelwald's ideology. In a city alive with magical wonders, the stakes escalate as the group learns of Grindelwald's sinister plan to locate Credence Barebone, a powerful obscurial whose immense magical potential could tip the balance of power. The clock ticks down, urgency mounting as they race against time to save Credence, and perhaps the entire wizarding world, from falling into Grindelwald's clutches. As confrontations loom and choices weigh heavily on their hearts, each character must grapple with their own demons. Love, sacrifice, and redemption take center stage in a thrilling narrative that unfolds against the backdrop of Paris, where every moment crackles with tension and possibility. The fight for the future of both wizards and non-magical beings begins, setting the stage for a battle that will echo through history. Welcome to the unfolding saga of fantastic beasts, the Crimes of Grindelwald, a tale of courage, camaraderie, and the relentless pursuit of hope amidst the encroaching shadows. As the stakes rise and destinies intertwine, the magic of friendship and the courage to stand against tyranny will illuminate the path ahead. Chapter 1. The Rise of Darkness. In the heart of 1927 Paris, a city pulsating with life, the air buzzed with an electric anticipation. The streets, alive with the chatter of people and the gentle clinking of glasses in vibrant cafes, masked a growing unease. Within this enchanting metropolis, a shadow lurked, a dark presence that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the wizarding world. Gellert Grindelwald, the notorious dark wizard, had escaped from captivity, and with his freedom came the disturbing echoes of his ambition. His vision of a world where wizards reigned supreme over muggles sent shivers through the magical community, igniting fear and fervor alike. Newt Scamander, a magizoologist known for his gentle demeanor and profound love for fantastical creatures, strolled through the cobblestone streets, his mind racing with concerns. The vibrant colors of Paris, the laughter of its inhabitants, and the intoxicating aroma of freshly baked pastries surrounded him, yet a weight pressed heavily on his heart. He had witnessed the consequences of Grindelwald's ideology firsthand, and the thought of him roaming free filled Newt with dread. He was determined to ensure that the dark wizard's influence did not spread unchecked. As he navigated the winding alleys, his thoughts turned to the Ministry of Magic, which had apprehended him due to his past entanglements with Grindelwald. Newt had always been an outsider, a dreamer lost in the wonders of his magical creatures. But now, he found himself caught in a web of political machinations, where he was seen as both a liability and a potential asset. The air was thick with tension, and every corner he turned seemed to whisper warnings of the chaos that lay ahead. The sound of footsteps echoed behind him, drawing his attention. He turned to find Tina Goldstein, an aura with a fierce determination and a heart that burned for justice. Her dark hair framed her face, and her steely gaze betrayed the weight of responsibility she carried. The two shared a complicated history, intertwined by love, loss, and the ever-present threat of darkness. "Newt," she called, urgency lacing her voice as she approached. "We need to talk." Newt nodded, his pulse quickening. They slipped into a nearby cafe, seeking the comfort of anonymity amid the bustling crowd. As they settled at a small table tucked away in the corner, Tina leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. Grindelwald is gaining followers. He's charismatic, and people are drawn to his vision. They believe he can change the world. Change the world, Newt muttered, a bitter taste in his mouth. Or destroy it. We can't let him find Credence. He's the key to everything. Tina's expression hardened. We must find him first. The Ministry has been searching, but our leads have gone cold. We can't afford to let Grindelwald get to him. As they spoke, Jacob Kowalski, the ever-optimistic Muggle baker who had stumbled into their world by accident, entered the cafe, a look of confusion plastered on his face. His presence brought a sense of warmth, a fleeting reminder of the joy that could still exist amidst the encroaching darkness. Newt's heart swelled at the sight of his friend, who had managed to regain his memories after the events that had torn them apart. "Hey guys," Jacob greeted, his voice brightening the somber atmosphere. "What's the plan? I hope it involves pastries because I could really use one right now." Tina allowed herself a small smile, appreciating Jacob's unwavering spirit. "We're discussing how to stop Grindelwald." "It's serious, Jacob." "Oh, I know it is," Jacob replied, his expression shifting to concern. "But we can't lose hope. We've faced worse, right? Together, we can do anything." Newt felt a surge of gratitude for his friends. Together, they had overcome immense challenges, and the bond they shared was a light in the darkness. But as the conversation turned back to their mission, the gravity of their situation weighed heavily on them. They had to find Credence Barebone, a powerful obscurial whose existence threatened to tip the scales of power. Suddenly, the cafe doors swung open, and a gust of wind swept through, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. A cloaked figure entered, casting a long shadow that seemed to stretch across the room. The patrons fell silent, eyes darting toward the newcomer. Tina's posture stiffened, her instincts kicking in as she sensed the danger lurking beneath the surface. "Stay alert," she whispered to Newt and Jacob, her voice steady. The figure approached their table, revealing itself to be Leta Lestrange, a woman from Newt's past, whose presence stirred a mixture of emotions within him. Her beauty was haunting, her eyes filled with a depth of sorrow and unspoken secrets. "Newt," she said softly, her voice laced with urgency. "I need your help." "What's going on, Leta?" Newt asked, his heart racing. "Is it about Grindelwald?" Leta nodded, glancing around as if ensuring they were not being overheard. "He's been searching for Credence, and I fear he has a connection to him that we don't yet understand. I know where Credence is hiding, but we must act quickly." The revelation sent a jolt of adrenaline through Newt. This was the break they needed, but it also came with a sense of peril. "Lead the way," he urged, determination flooding his voice. As they exited the cafe, the streets of Paris seemed to pulse with an ominous energy. The vibrant colors around them faded, replaced by a sense of urgency that quickened their steps. Newt's mind raced with possibilities. He had to protect Credence, and time was slipping away. Leta guided them through winding alleyways, her knowledge of the city's hidden corners invaluable. They traversed a landscape where magic thrived in secrecy, where witches and wizards whispered incantations beneath the shadows. Each turn brought them closer to the truth, yet the weight of their mission loomed heavy in the air. As they approached a dimly lit courtyard, a flicker of movement caught Newt's eye. He motioned for the group to halt, his instincts sharpening. "Did you see that?" he whispered. Before anyone could respond, a figure emerged from the darkness, a young man with wild, haunted eyes. Credence Barebone. Newt's heart raced as he stepped forward cautiously, sensing the turmoil within the boy. "Credence," Newt called softly, trying to reach him. "We're here to help you." The boy's eyes darted between Newt and the others, uncertainty etched on his face. "You shouldn't be here. He'll find you." "Grindelwald?" Tina interjected, her voice steady. "We're not afraid of him. We want to protect you. You're not alone." Credence shook his head, panic rising in his gaze. "You don't understand. He's powerful. He can take everything from you." Newt took a step closer, his heart aching for the pain Credence was enduring. "We know what he wants, but we can keep you safe. Please trust us." Before Credence could respond, a chilling laugh echoed through the courtyard, sending icy tendrils of fear spiraling through the air. From the shadows, Grindelwald emerged, his presence commanding and malevolent. The atmosphere shifted, thick with tension as the dark wizard locked eyes with them, a sinister smile playing on his lips. "Ah, Newt Scamander," Grindelwald purred, his voice smooth as silk. "Always meddling where you don't belong. You should know by now that your efforts are futile." Tina instinctively stepped in front of Newt and Jacob, her wand drawn, ready to defend her friends. "You won't take him," she declared, her voice unwavering. Grindelwald's gaze turned to Credence, his expression transforming into one of twisted fascination. "And here is my prize. You have no idea of the power you possess, my dear boy. Join me, and together we can reshape the world." Fear flickered in Credence's eyes, and Newt felt an overwhelming surge of protectiveness. "No," he shouted, stepping forward. "You won't manipulate him any longer." With a flick of Grindelwald's wrist, an explosion of magic erupted, sending shockwaves through the courtyard. Newt, Tina, and Jacob were thrown backward, struggling to regain their footing as the air crackled with raw energy. The clash of wills ignited a fierce battle, the very essence of good and evil colliding in a breathtaking spectacle. As Newt scrambled to his feet, he caught a glimpse of Credence, torn between fear and the seductive call of power emanating from Grindelwald. Desperation fueled his resolve as he sprinted toward the boy, determined to pull him from the brink. "Credence, listen to me," Newt shouted over the roar of magic. "You are stronger than he is. Don't let him control you." In that moment, a flicker of recognition sparked in Credence's eyes, and he hesitated, caught in the throes of inner turmoil. Grindelwald's expression soured, anger flashing across his face as he realized he was losing his grip on the boy. "No," he bellowed, raising his wand to unleash another wave of destructive magic. But before he could strike, a surge of energy erupted from Credence, a manifestation of his obscurial powers that lit up the night sky. The force of it sent Grindelwald staggering back, momentarily thrown off balance. Seizing the opportunity, Newt reached out, his voice filled with urgency. "Come with us, Credence. We can help you control it." With a final, defiant look at Grindelwald, Credence made his choice. He turned and raced toward Newt, their hands clasping together in a moment of solidarity. The energy around them crackled, a shield forming as they stood united against the encroaching darkness. Grindelwald's fury ignited, and he unleashed a torrent of magic, but Newt and his friends held their ground. The power of their friendship and resolve formed an unbreakable barrier, pushing back the malevolence that threatened to consume them. As the battle raged on, Newt felt a swell of hope rise within him. They were stronger together, bound by a common purpose that transcended fear. And in that moment, they understood the true nature of their fight, not just for Credence, but for the very soul of the wizarding world itself. With a burst of determination, Newt led the charge, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The darkness would not prevail, not while they stood united. Together, they would forge a path through the shadows, seeking a future where love and hope triumphed over tyranny. Chapter 2. The Call to Action. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the enchanting city of Paris. As night descended, the streets transformed into a kaleidoscope of lights and shadows, bustling with life yet tinged with an undercurrent of tension. Within the hidden corners of the magical community, whispers of Gellert Grindelwald's resurgence filled the air, accompanied by the palpable fear of uncertainty. Newt Scamander, Tina Goldstein, Jacob Kowalski, and Credence Barebones stood at a crossroads, their destinies intertwined by the specter of darkness that loomed over them. After their harrowing encounter with Grindelwald, the group found refuge in a secluded apartment, a small haven tucked away from prying eyes. The walls held the warmth of shared moments, adorned with photographs and trinkets that spoke of adventures past. Yet, the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken dread, each member acutely aware of the gravity of their situation. Newt paced the room, his mind racing with thoughts of how to protect Credence and thwart Grindelwald's ambitions. "Credence," Newt began, turning toward the boy, who sat on the edge of a worn armchair. "You have a remarkable gift, but it's essential that you learn to control it. Grindelwald will try to exploit your power, and we need to ensure he doesn't succeed." Credence's gaze flickered with uncertainty. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I don't know how to stop it. It just happens." Tina knelt beside him, her expression compassionate yet firm. "We'll help you. You're not alone in this. Together, we can find a way to harness your abilities." Jacob, ever the optimist, chimed in. "I believe in you, Credence. You've already shown incredible strength. We'll figure this out as a team." The boy's shoulders relaxed slightly at their encouragement, but the shadows of doubt lingered in his eyes. Newt felt a surge of determination. They needed a plan, one that would not only protect Credence, but also confront the rising tide of darkness embodied by Grindelwald. "First, we need to gather information," Newt said, his voice steady. "We must understand what Grindelwald is after. He's searching for you, Credence, and we need to know why. Tina nodded in agreement. There are rumors about a meeting of Grindelwald's followers. If we can infiltrate it, we might learn his intentions and strategies. It's risky, but it could be our best chance. Newt felt a mix of excitement and apprehension at the thought. The prospect of entering the heart of Grindelwald's circle was daunting, yet the urgency of their mission propelled him forward. They had to act swiftly. Each passing moment brought them closer to disaster. The following day dawned crisp and clear. The streets of Paris bathed in a shimmering light that belied the turmoil brewing beneath the surface. With a sense of purpose, the group set out to gather supplies and prepare for their infiltration. Newt led them through the labyrinthine streets, his heart pounding with anticipation. As they walked, they passed street vendors selling colorful trinkets and delicious pastries, the aromas wafting through the air providing a momentary distraction from their grim mission. Jacob, ever the foodie, couldn't resist sampling a few treats, his laughter echoing through the alleyways. You know, if we survive this, I'm opening a bakery that specializes in magical pastries, he declared, his eyes twinkling with delight. Tina smiled, appreciating Jacob's ability to lift their spirits, even amid the looming danger. Let's focus on surviving first, then we can discuss bakeries later. They arrived at a quaint shop that specialized in magical artifacts, a hidden gem frequented by those seeking to remain under the radar. Inside, the dimly lit space was filled with enchanting objects, glowing crystals, ancient tomes, and peculiar trinkets that seemed to hum with energy. The shopkeeper, a wizened wizard with spectacles perched precariously on his nose, greeted them with a knowing smile. "Ah, Newt Scamander. What brings you here today?" he asked, his eyes glinting with curiosity. "We need information," Newt replied, glancing around the shop. "And perhaps a few supplies for an upcoming venture." The shopkeeper nodded, understanding the implications. "You're not the only ones looking for whispers of Grindelwald. The air is thick with tension, and his followers are growing bolder. I've heard murmurs of a gathering in the catacombs beneath the city. Rumor has it that Grindelwald himself will be in attendance." Newt exchanged glances with Tina and Jacob, the weight of the revelations sinking in. "The catacombs," he murmured, the location both intriguing and foreboding. "It's a place of secrets and shadows." "Indeed," the shopkeeper continued, rummaging through a drawer filled with various magical items. "But it's also a place where powerful enchantments linger. You'll need protection if you plan to venture there." With a flick of his wand, he produced a small vial containing shimmering powder. "This is a disillusionment charm. It will help you blend into the shadows, but use it wisely. The deeper you go, the more dangerous it becomes." Newt accepted the vial, gratitude flooding his heart. "Thank you. We'll be careful." As they departed the shop, the weight of their mission settled heavily on their shoulders. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced ominously along the cobblestones. The group made their way toward the entrance to the catacombs, an unassuming doorway that concealed a labyrinth of tunnels beneath the city. With a deep breath, they stepped inside, the air growing colder as they descended into the depths. The flickering light from Jacob's wand illuminated the damp stone walls, revealing intricate carvings and remnants of a history long forgotten. The atmosphere was thick with an eerie silence, the kind that made the hair on the back of Newt's neck stand on end. As they ventured deeper, the echoes of their footsteps seemed to amplify, reverberating through the narrow passages. Newt's heart raced with anticipation, knowing that they were drawing closer to the heart of Grindelwald's operations. Tina led the way, her keen instincts guiding them through the winding tunnels. After what felt like an eternity, they arrived at a large chamber, its walls adorned with flickering torches that cast dancing shadows across the stone. The air was charged with energy, and the low murmur of voices reached their ears, a sinister symphony of conspiratorial whispers. "Stay close," Tina instructed, her voice barely above a whisper. The group pressed against the wall, peering into the chamber where Grindelwald's followers had gathered. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and Newt's heart sank as he recognized the faces of those who had once stood against him. Grindelwald's voice cut through the air, smooth and persuasive. "We are on the brink of a new dawn, my friends. A world where wizards and witches will no longer hide in the shadows. Join me, and together we shall shape the future." The crowd erupted in applause, their fervor palpable. Newt felt a wave of unease wash over him. The power of Grindelwald's charisma was undeniable, and the danger of his ideology threatened to ensnare even the most steadfast hearts. "Credence," Tina whispered urgently, "we need to find out what he's planning. Stay close." As Grindelwald continued to speak, Newt felt a familiar ache of determination swell within him. He knew they had to gather information, but he also sensed the impending danger. The longer they remained, the greater the risk of exposure. Suddenly, a figure broke away from the crowd, making their way toward the shadows. Newt squinted, recognizing the familiar silhouette. It was Leta Lestrange. His heart raced at the sight of her, torn between concern and hope. She had been intertwined with his past, and her presence now felt like both a blessing and a curse. "Leta," he called out softly, trying to catch her attention without drawing notice. She paused, glancing in their direction, her expression a mix of relief and trepidation. As she approached, Newt could see the tension in her shoulders, the weight of her choices pressing down on her. "You shouldn't be here," she warned, her voice low. "Grindelwald is more dangerous than ever. He won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who opposes him." "We know," Tina replied, urgency lacing her words. "We're here to find out what he's planning. Have you learned anything?" Leta hesitated, her gaze shifting back toward the gathering. "He seeks credence. Grindelwald believes he can harness his powers, and with them, he aims to propel his agenda forward. He wants to create an army of wizards who will dominate the Muggles." Newt's stomach twisted at the implications. "We need to get him out of here. If Grindelwald finds out Credence is with us." "I can help," Leta interrupted, determination igniting in her eyes. "There's a hidden exit at the back of the chamber. It leads to the surface, away from the chaos. But we must act quickly." Without hesitation, the group moved toward the back of the chamber, their hearts pounding in unison. The voices of the followers grew louder, the fervor of their beliefs echoing through the stone walls. Newt felt the weight of their mission pressing down on him. They couldn't allow themselves to be discovered. As they reached the hidden exit, the sound of footsteps approached. Panic surged through Newt, and he motioned for them to hurry. With a swift push, they slipped through the doorway, emerging into a narrow corridor that led them away from the turmoil. Breathless, they sprinted through the dimly lit passage, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the silence. Newt's mind raced as he thought of the path ahead. They had to regroup, to find a safe place to plan their next move. Emerging into the cool night air, they found themselves in a secluded alleyway, the sounds of the city muffled by the walls surrounding them. They leaned against the cool stone, catching their breath as the weight of their escape settled in. "That was too close," Jacob panted, a mix of relief and adrenaline coursing through him. Newt nodded, his heart still racing. "We need to get somewhere safe. We can't let Grindelwald find us." Tina glanced around, scanning the dimly lit alley. "There's an old hideout nearby, a place where I used to go during my training. It should be secure." "Lead the way," Newt said, grateful for Tina's quick thinking. They navigated through the winding streets, ducking into side alleys and avoiding the main thoroughfares, their senses heightened as they moved. As they arrived at the hideout, a small, unassuming building tucked away behind a cluster of shops, Newt felt a sense of relief wash over him. The door creaked open, revealing a cozy interior that felt like a sanctuary amidst the chaos. The flickering candlelight illuminated the room, casting warm shadows that offered comfort. Once inside, they settled around a worn table, the weight of their experiences pressing down on them. Newt took a deep breath, focusing on the task ahead. "We need to strategize. Grindelwald is a formidable opponent, and we must stay one step ahead." Tina nodded, her brow furrowed in thought. "We should gather more information about his followers. They might be planning something significant, and we need to know what we're up against." Jacob chimed in. "I can talk to some of my contacts in the city. They might have heard whispers about Grindelwald's plans." Credence, still silent, looked between them, uncertainty lingering in his eyes. "What if he finds me?" His voice was soft, filled with apprehension. Newt leaned forward, his expression earnest. "We won't let that happen. We'll protect you, Credence. You're not alone in this fight." As the plan began to take shape, Newt felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were a team, bound by their commitment to each other and the hope of a brighter future. Together, they would confront the darkness that threatened to consume them. The night wore on, filled with quiet determination and whispered strategies. Each member of the group understood the stakes, and as they shared their thoughts and ideas, a sense of camaraderie blossomed. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for a world where love and acceptance could triumph over hatred and fear. As dawn broke, casting a soft light across the city, they knew that the challenges ahead would test their resolve. But united in their purpose, they felt a spark of hope igniting within. The battle against Grindelwald was just beginning, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead, determined to protect the precious bonds that had formed between them. With renewed energy, they prepared to step into the unknown, armed with the knowledge that love and friendship could light the way through even the darkest of times. The call to action had been sounded, and they were ready to answer. The fate of the wizarding world rested on their shoulders, and together, they would rise to meet the challenge. Chapter 3. A Web of Deception. The dawn light filtered through the windows of their hideout, casting gentle rays that illuminated the worn wooden floor and the faces of Newt Scamander, Tina Goldstein, Jacob Kowalski, and Credence Barebone. A new day had begun, but the weight of uncertainty loomed heavily in the air, thick with unspoken fears and unresolved tensions. Each person felt a sense of urgency, a recognition that time was not on their side. Gellert Grindelwald's influence was spreading, and with it, the potential for chaos and destruction. As the group gathered around the small table, Newt felt the familiar flutter of anxiety in his stomach. Their mission was clear. They needed to uncover Grindelwald's plans and stop him from exploiting Credence's powers. The stakes had risen dramatically, and Newt understood that every decision they made could tip the balance between hope and despair. "Let's go over what we know," Tina suggested, her voice steady as she laid out a series of parchment notes. "Grindelwald's followers are mobilizing, and they seem to be growing in number. We need to identify key players in his organization and their roles." Jacob leaned closer, his brows furrowed in concentration. "Do you think we can find someone on the inside? Maybe someone who's had second thoughts about joining him?" Newt nodded, appreciating Jacob's insight. "Yes, that could be our best chance. If we can find a way to infiltrate his ranks, we might learn what he's planning and how to counteract it." Credence, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. "But what if they discover that I'm with you? I don't want to put anyone in danger." Tina offered him a reassuring smile. "We'll be careful, Credence. You're safer with us. We'll come up with a plan that keeps you shielded from any potential threats." As they strategized, Newt's mind wandered back to the encounter in the catacombs. The fervor of Grindelwald's followers had been unsettling, and the way he had commanded their attention left an indelible impression on Newt. The dark wizard was not just a powerful sorcerer. He was a master manipulator, weaving a web of deception that ensnared even the most wary hearts. "Let's split up," Tina suggested after a moment of contemplation. "I can reach out to some contacts in the ministry who might have information about Grindelwald's movements. Jacob, you could see if any of your friends have heard anything unusual around town." "Sounds like a plan," Jacob replied, his enthusiasm returning. "And what about you, Newt?" "I'll search for Credence's past," he said thoughtfully. "There may be clues about his family or history that could shed light on why Grindelwald is so interested in him. If we can understand that connection, we might be able to use it to our advantage." With their roles established, the group set off into the bustling streets of Paris, each determined to gather the intel they needed. The city was alive with energy, the sounds of laughter and conversation echoing through the air. But beneath the vibrant surface, the tension simmered, as if everyone was aware of the dark storm brewing on the horizon. Newt found himself wandering through the charming streets, his heart heavy with purpose. He headed toward the narrow alleyways where he had previously encountered magical creatures, hoping to find leads to Credence's origins. The quaint shops and cafes felt deceptively serene, the aromas of fresh bread and pastries wafting through the air, but he couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. As he continued down a cobbled street, he spotted a small, unassuming bookstore nestled between two larger buildings. The sign above the door read "The Enchanted Quill," and the allure of its dusty shelves filled with ancient tomes was irresistible. Newt stepped inside, the bell above the door chiming softly as he crossed the threshold. The interior was dimly lit, illuminated by shafts of sunlight that streamed through the windows, casting playful patterns across the floor. Rows upon rows of books lined the walls, their spines faded with age. Newt's heart raced with excitement. His love for magical literature drew him in, but he was here for a different purpose. "Can I help you?" A voice called from behind a counter cluttered with scrolls and curiosities. An elderly witch with spectacles perched on her nose looked up, her expression curious yet kind. "I'm looking for information," Newt replied earnestly. "Specifically about a boy named Credence Barebone. Anything related to his family or history would be invaluable." The witch's eyes widened slightly, and she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Ah, Credence. I've heard whispers, but they are dangerous. Grindelwald seeks him for a reason, and those who delve too deeply into his past may find themselves entangled in dark magic. I understand the risks, Newt said, determination hardening his resolve. But I must know. If there's any chance to protect him, I need to learn the truth. The witch hesitated, glancing around as if fearful of being overheard. There are tales, stories of a family that harbored secrets. Credence was adopted, raised in a world that shunned him for being different. His true lineage might hold the key to his power. Newt felt a surge of hope. Do you know where I can find more information? Seek out the archives at the Ministry of Magic, she instructed. They hold records that may reveal the truth about his origins. But tread carefully, dark forces are at play. Thanking the witch, Newt left the bookstore, his mind buzzing with the possibilities. The Ministry's archives could provide vital insights, but he would need to tread carefully, aware of the ever-watchful eyes of Grindelwald's followers. Meanwhile, Tina made her way to the Ministry of Magic, her heart pounding with the urgency of her mission. She had faith in her contacts, but she knew the risks involved in seeking information about Grindelwald. As she entered the imposing building, she felt the familiar mix of anxiety and determination wash over her. Navigating through the bustling halls, she spotted a familiar face, an old colleague named Yusuf Kama. He had a reputation for being reliable and resourceful, and Tina hoped he could provide her with insights into the dark wizard's movements. Yusuf, she called, hurrying toward him. He turned, a look of surprise crossing his face before he approached her. Tina, it's been too long. What brings you here? He asked, concern flickering in his eyes. I need your help, she replied, her voice urgent. Grindelwald is back, and he's gathering followers. I fear he's planning something catastrophic. I need to know what the Ministry knows about his activities. Yusuf's expression turned serious. I've heard whispers too. He's been rallying support, promising power to those who follow him. But the Ministry is divided. Some believe he's a threat. Others see him as a revolutionary. Tina's heart sank at the thought of those who would support such a dangerous ideology. We need to stop him before it's too late. Do you have any leads on his followers or their plans? Yusuf nodded, glancing around to ensure they weren't overheard. There's a meeting scheduled tomorrow night at an abandoned theater on the outskirts of the city. I can get you in, but it's risky. If Grindelwald's followers catch wind of your presence. I understand, Tina interrupted, her resolve firm. We have to take that risk. Credence is in danger, and we must protect him. With a plan forming, Tina felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would infiltrate the meeting, gather information, and confront Grindelwald's followers head-on. It was a dangerous path, but she was willing to fight for what was right. Meanwhile, Jacob scoured the bustling streets of Paris, his heart racing with anticipation. He had always been a man of simple pleasures, baking, friendship, laughter. But now he found himself thrust into a world filled with danger and intrigue. He was determined to help his friends however he could. As he walked through the marketplace, he approached a group of fellow bakers, hoping to glean information about any strange occurrences or whispers surrounding Grindelwald. Hey, fellas, Jacob greeted, his usual jovial demeanor shining through. Have you heard any rumors or anything strange happening lately? One of the bakers, a stout man with flour dusted on his apron, nodded. There's been talk of a gathering in the catacombs. Some say it's Grindelwald's people, planning something big. Jacob's heart raced. Do you know when or where? Tomorrow night at the old theater, the baker replied, glancing around as if worried someone might overhear. But it's not safe to get involved with those folks. They're not to be trifled with. I appreciate the heads up, Jacob said, determination flooding his veins. He would do whatever it took to protect his friends and stop Grindelwald's plans. With newfound purpose, he made his way back to their hideout, eager to share what he had learned. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, the group reconvened at the hideout. Newt, Tina, Jacob, and Credence gathered around the table, the weight of their discoveries hanging in the air. Newt shared what he had learned about Credence's origins, while Tina recounted her conversation with Yusuf. We have a lead on a meeting tomorrow night at an abandoned theater, Tina explained. We need to infiltrate it and gather as much information as we can. Jacob chimed in. I heard the same thing at the bakery. They're planning something big, and we can't let them go through with it. Credence listened intently, his anxiety palpable. What if they discover I'm with you? I don't want to put anyone in danger. Newt leaned closer, his gaze steady. We'll devise a plan that keeps you safe, Credence. You'll be our priority." With their roles clarified, the group began to brainstorm their approach. They discussed disguises, contingency plans, and ways to gather information without drawing attention. Each member contributed ideas, their camaraderie strengthening as they focused on the task at hand. As the night wore on, they prepared for the challenges that lay ahead. Newt felt a sense of determination settle within him, a flicker of hope igniting as they united against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Together, they would confront the web of deception that Grindelwald had spun, refusing to be ensnared by his manipulative charm. The following day dawned with an air of anticipation. As they gathered their supplies and prepared to leave for the theater, Newt couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into the lion's den. The stakes had never been higher, and he understood that their mission could change the course of their lives forever. "Remember," Tina said, her voice firm as they stood at the entrance of the hideout, "we stick together. We watch each other's backs." With a collective nod, they stepped out into the world, ready to confront the darkness and unravel the web of deception that threatened to consume them all. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but armed with their courage and the bonds they had forged, they were prepared to face whatever challenges awaited them. Together, they would rise against Grindelwald, determined to protect not just Credence, but the very essence of the wizarding world itself. Chapter 4. The Battle for the Future. The evening air was thick with anticipation as Newt Scamander, Tina Goldstein, Jacob Kowalski, and Credence Barebone approached the dilapidated theater on the outskirts of Paris. The once grand building loomed before them, its crumbling facade a stark contrast to the vibrant life of the city they had traversed. The flickering lights of nearby street lamps cast eerie shadows across the entrance, enhancing the sense of foreboding that clung to the atmosphere. Newt felt a familiar flutter of anxiety in his chest as they stepped closer to the entrance. The mission weighed heavily upon him. They were about to infiltrate the heart of Gellert Grindelwald's operation, a place teeming with followers eager to embrace the dark wizard's ideology. He stole a glance at Credence, who walked beside him, his expression a mixture of determination and apprehension. Newt's heart ached for the boy. They were not just fighting for their own lives, but for Credence's very future. "Stay close," Tina instructed, her voice low but firm. "We need to blend in and gather as much information as possible without drawing attention." Jacob adjusted his collar, attempting to appear nonchalant despite the tension crackling in the air. "Got it. Just act natural," he said, though his eyes betrayed his nervousness. "How do we look, by the way?" Newt couldn't help but smile at Jacob's attempt to lighten the mood. They had fashioned their disguises to blend in with the crowd, but the stakes felt too high for humor to ease his mind. "As natural as we can be, considering the circumstances," he replied. With a shared nod, the group moved toward the entrance. The worn doors creaked ominously as they pushed them open, revealing the dimly lit interior of the theater. The air was thick with the scent of dust and decay, remnants of a bygone era. The main hall stretched out before them, adorned with tattered banners and makeshift seating arrangements that hinted at the gathering of Grindelwald's followers. As they entered, the murmur of voices filled the room, a low hum of anticipation that vibrated through the air. Newt's pulse quickened as he recognized several prominent figures within the crowd. Witches and wizards who had once stood against the dark forces, now seemingly swayed by Grindelwald's persuasive rhetoric. "Over there," Tina whispered, pointing to a cluster of figures gathered near the stage. "That's where Grindelwald will likely address his followers." They found a shadowy corner from which to observe, their hearts pounding in sync with the rising energy in the room. The atmosphere crackled with tension as more followers filed in, their eyes gleaming with zeal and anticipation. Newt felt the weight of the moment settle upon them. They were witnessing a pivotal gathering, one that could shape the future of the wizarding world. As the lights dimmed, a hush fell over the crowd. Newt's breath caught in his throat as Gellert Grindelwald stepped onto the stage, his presence commanding and magnetic. The dark wizard radiated power, his silver hair glinting under the flickering lights. The followers erupted into applause, a wave of fervor washing over the room. "Thank you for gathering here tonight," Grindelwald began, his voice smooth and compelling. "We stand at the precipice of a new era, one where our kind will no longer hide in the shadows. Together, we will rise and take our rightful place in the world." The crowd erupted in cheers, their fervor echoing off the theater walls. Newt felt a chill run down his spine at the sight of so many wizards and witches captivated by Grindelwald's words. This was not just a meeting. It was a rallying cry that could ignite a movement. Grindelwald continued, weaving a tapestry of promises and enticing visions. Imagine a world where we are free to live without fear of persecution. A world where our strength will reign supreme over those who have oppressed us for too long. We will no longer be the hunted. We will be the hunters. Tina's expression hardened as she listened, recognizing the manipulative tactics at play. He's exploiting their fears, she murmured, her voice filled with urgency. We have to find a way to disrupt this before it escalates. Agreed, Newt replied, his mind racing. But how do we get the information we need without exposing ourselves? As they strategized in hushed tones, Jacob's gaze drifted toward the crowd, scanning for any familiar faces or potential allies. What if we could talk to someone who's having second thoughts? There has to be someone here who isn't fully on board with his vision. Newt nodded, appreciating Jacob's insight. That could work. If we can locate someone disillusioned with Grindelwald's ideology, we might gather crucial intelligence. Just then, a figure emerged from the crowd, moving with a sense of urgency. It was Leta Lestrange, her expression a mix of determination and fear as she approached their corner. You shouldn't be here, she hissed, glancing nervously over her shoulder. If they find out, we're here to stop Grindelwald, Newt interjected quietly. We need information. Can you help us? Leta's gaze darted around the room, her brow furrowed in concern. He's planning something significant. I overheard him mention a ritual that would amplify Credence's powers. He wants to use him as a weapon. Newt's heart raced at the revelation. We have to protect him at all costs. Where will this ritual take place? I don't know the specifics, Leta admitted, her voice laced with urgency. But it's scheduled for tomorrow night. You must act quickly. Grindelwald's followers are becoming more fanatical, and anyone who opposes him becomes a target. The weight of her words settled heavily upon them. Newt glanced at Credence, who was trying to absorb the gravity of the situation. We'll figure something out, he assured the boy, his resolve strengthening. We won't let them use you. As Grindelwald continued his speech, the crowd's fervor reached a fever pitch. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a palpable energy that sent shivers down Newt's spine. The dark wizard was weaving a spell of his own, one that captivated and ensnared even the most cautious hearts. Suddenly, Grindelwald raised his hand, silencing the crowd. Tonight, we stand united. We will not be divided by those who wish to see us fall. Together, we will forge a new path. The followers erupted into a frenzy of applause and cheers, their voices rising in a cacophony of loyalty. Newt felt a wave of nausea wash over him as he realized the depth of Grindelwald's influence. This was more than a mere gathering. It was a movement gaining momentum with every word spoken. As the speech reached its climax, Tina leaned in closer to Newt. We need to get out of here. If Grindelwald discovers we're here, we'll be in serious trouble. Agreed, Newt replied, glancing around to assess their surroundings. We need to find a way to slip out without drawing attention. Just as they began to formulate an escape plan, a commotion erupted near the stage. A group of followers had started shouting, their faces contorted with fervor as they clamored for action. We want to be part of the new order, one voice cried out, echoing the sentiments that Grindelwald had instilled in them. In the midst of the chaos, Newt spotted a glimmer of movement, a figure making their way toward the stage, eyes locked on Grindelwald. It was a young witch, her expression filled with determination and defiance. This isn't right, she shouted, her voice rising above the din. We can't let ourselves be used as pawns in his game. The crowd fell silent, their attention drawn to the unexpected interruption. Newt's heart raced as he recognized the potential for disruption. We have to support her, he urged, sensing the moment could turn the tide. Tina nodded, determination etched across her features. Let's do it. As they moved toward the stage, Jacob glanced at Credence, who looked unsure. Stay close to us, he instructed, his protective instincts kicking in. Newt and Tina reached the front of the crowd, standing alongside the young witch who had taken a stand against Grindelwald. You're not alone, Newt called out, his voice filled with conviction. We won't let him manipulate us any longer. The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling through the followers as they processed the unexpected rebellion. Some expressions reflected doubt, while others remained steadfast in their loyalty to Grindelwald. Grindelwald's gaze turned to them, his demeanor shifting from charismatic leader to an icy predator. Ah, dissenters, he hissed, his voice dripping with disdain. You dare challenge the vision of a brighter future? The tension in the room escalated, and Newt felt a surge of adrenaline. We challenge the idea that power should come at the expense of others. We stand for freedom, not oppression. The young witch beside him nodded, emboldened by Newt's words. We deserve to choose our own paths, not to be used as weapons in your twisted ambition. Grindelwald's expression darkened, and he raised his wand, the air crackling with dark magic. You will regret this defiance. Before the situation could escalate further, Newt glanced back at Tina and Jacob, their resolve mirrored in their eyes. They needed to act quickly and decisively. We can't let him intimidate us. We need to unite those who feel the same way. With a determined nod, Tina turned to the crowd. We are not afraid. We refuse to be pawns in a game that seeks to divide us. Newt felt the tide of uncertainty shifting, the whispers of dissent growing stronger. Some followers began to murmur in agreement, questioning the path they had chosen. The seeds of doubt were taking root, and Newt had to nurture that burgeoning hope. Join us, he shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. Together, we can forge a different future, one built on understanding and compassion rather than fear and domination. The crowd began to stir, the energy shifting as more voices joined the chorus of dissent. The followers' fervor transformed into a wave of uncertainty, and Newt felt the atmosphere crackle with possibility. They were standing at a crossroads, and the outcome lay in the balance. Grindelwald's fury intensified, his eyes glinting with malice as he surveyed the dissenters. You are fools to oppose me. You cannot comprehend the power I wield. With a swift motion, he unleashed a torrent of dark magic toward the stage, the air thick with energy. Newt instinctively raised his wand, ready to defend against the oncoming attack. The crowd gasped as the dark spell hurtled toward them, but before it could reach its target, the young witch beside Newt stepped forward, her own wand raised. Protego! She cried, casting a protective shield that absorbed the impact of Grindelwald's magic. The energy rippled through the air, and Newt felt a surge of hope. They were not alone. Others were standing up against the darkness. The crowd erupted into chaos, some followers retreating in fear while others rallied behind the young witch, emboldened by her bravery. Newt seized the moment. Now is our chance. We can't let Grindelwald win. With renewed determination, he charged forward, rallying those who were willing to join their cause. The atmosphere shifted from one of fear to empowerment, and the tide of battle began to turn. As they fought back against Grindelwald's followers, Newt, Tina, Jacob, and Credence stood together, their bond unbreakable amid the chaos. Spells flew through the air, illuminating the darkened theater as the battle unfolded. Each incantation echoed with the resolve of those who had chosen to stand against tyranny. In the midst of the fray, Credence felt a flicker of power within him, an energy waiting to be unleashed. He looked toward Grindelwald, whose presence radiated menace, and for the first time, he felt the urge to fight back. I won't let you use me, he shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. Grindelwald turned, surprise flashing across his face as he realized the boy's newfound strength. You are nothing without me, he retorted, but Credence stood firm, the energy within him surging. With a surge of willpower, Credence unleashed a wave of magic that rippled through the theater, pushing back against Grindelwald's aura. The dark wizard stumbled, momentarily thrown off balance as his own magic collided with the raw energy emanating from Credence. Now! Newt shouted, urging the crowd forward as they pressed the advantage. The tide of the battle shifted, the followers who had once been loyal to Grindelwald now questioning their allegiance. They surged forward, united in their determination to reclaim their freedom. Tina fought valiantly beside Newt, her wand slicing through the air as she cast protective spells to shield their allies. We can do this, she shouted, her voice filled with fervor. We will not be silenced. As the battle raged on, Jacob found himself swept up in the chaos, his heart pounding as he dodged spells and rallied those around him. Stay together, he called out, his spirit unyielding. We can't let them tear us apart. In the midst of the fray, Newt caught a glimpse of Grindelwald, fury etched across his features as he struggled to regain control. The dark wizard raised his wand, prepared to unleash another torrent of dark magic. But before he could act, Credence stepped forward, his own power surging. I won't let you hurt anyone, Credence declared, and with a fierce determination, he unleashed a powerful wave of energy that enveloped the theater. The force of it sent shockwaves through the crowd, pushing back against Grindelwald's influence. As the darkness began to recede, Newt felt a sense of hope washing over him. The followers who had once been ensnared by Grindelwald's charm now stood united in their defiance. Together, they forged a path toward a brighter future, one built on love and acceptance rather than fear and oppression. With a final surge of energy, Credence's magic collided with Grindelwald's, a brilliant explosion of light erupting in the theater. The impact sent both combatants sprawling, and the crowd gasped in awe. As the dust settled, Newt and his friends stood together, their hearts racing with adrenaline. They had faced the darkness head-on and emerged stronger for it. Grindelwald lay on the ground, his expression one of disbelief and fury as the tide of the battle shifted irrevocably. "We will not be ruled by fear any longer," Newt declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "Together, we will rise and build a world where all beings can coexist in harmony." The crowd erupted into cheers, their voices rising in a chorus of unity and hope. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger, their bonds forged in the crucible of battle. In that moment, Newt realized the true power of their fight. It wasn't just a battle against Grindelwald, it was a stand for freedom, love, and acceptance. Together, they had woven a tapestry of resistance that would echo through the ages. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the theater, Newt felt a renewed sense of purpose. The future was uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. The battle for the future had only just begun, and with their hearts united, they would rise to meet whatever challenges lay ahead. Chapter 5. The Path Forward. Morning light streamed through the dusty windows of their temporary refuge, illuminating motes of dust dancing in golden beams. Newt Scamander gazed at his companions, each bearing the marks of yesterday's confrontation at the theater. Though victorious in that skirmish, he understood their battle against Grindelwald had merely begun. The dark wizard had retreated but not surrendered, and his influence still permeated magical communities across Europe. Tina stood by the window, vigilant eyes scanning the street below. Her usually neat appearance showed signs of their recent struggle. A small cut above her brow, her coat bearing scorch marks from deflected spells. Yet determination radiated from her stance, unwavering despite fatigue. "Do you think Grindelwald will regroup quickly?" she asked, turning to face the room. Newt considered her question carefully. "Without doubt, his setback at the theater will only fuel his rage. We've disrupted his plans, but not destroyed them." Jacob sat at a rickety table, applying a healing salve to his bruised knuckles. Despite lacking magical abilities, he had fought bravely, managing to disarm one of Grindelwald's followers with nothing but courage and quick reflexes. "At least we showed his supporters that not everyone buys his fancy speeches," he offered, wincing slightly as he dabbed the medicine. In the corner, Credence remained quiet, contemplating the magical energy he had unleashed during the confrontation. The revelation of his own power both fascinated and frightened him. His fingers traced invisible patterns on the wooden floorboards, each movement leaving faint traces of luminescence that faded moments later. "You were extraordinary," Newt said gently, approaching Credence with measured steps. "The control you demonstrated was remarkable." "I didn't feel in control," Credence admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "It felt like something inside me finally broke free after years of imprisonment." Tina joined them, kneeling beside Credence. "That's precisely why Grindelwald wants you. Your magic manifests differently, raw, powerful, uninhibited by conventional training." A knock at the door startled everyone. Wands were drawn instantly, all eyes fixed on the entrance. Newt moved forward cautiously, signaling the others to position themselves strategically. With a swift motion, he pulled the door open, prepared for confrontation. Lita Lestrange stood in the hallway, her elegant appearance contrasting sharply with their disheveled surroundings. "May I enter?" she asked, her composure betraying only the slightest hint of anxiety. After ensuring she hadn't been followed, Newt welcomed her inside. Lita surveyed the room, her gaze lingering on each person before settling on Credence. "The events at the theater have caused quite a stir. Grindelwald is furious. He's convinced his followers that last night was merely a test of loyalty, separating the faithful from the weak." "What's his next move?" Tina questioned, maintaining a cautious distance from Lita, whose allegiances remained ambiguous. "He's accelerated his plans," Lita revealed, removing a folded parchment from her coat. "This document contains details about an ancient ritual site beneath Paris. Grindelwald believes performing a specific ceremony that will amplify his powers exponentially." Newt unfolded the parchment, examining intricate diagrams and notes written in a spidery hand. "These are runic formulations for channeling magical energy." If Grindelwald completes this ritual, he could harness enough power to challenge entire governments. Jacob peered over Newt's shoulder, frowning at the incomprehensible symbols. So what's our plan? Storm in and stop the ceremony. We need more information first, Tina cautioned. Rushing blindly would be disastrous. These ancient sites often contain powerful protective enchantments. Lita nodded in agreement. The location is beneath the Père Lachaise cemetery. Accessing it requires navigating a labyrinth of catacombs. Grindelwald plans to gather his most devoted followers there tomorrow night. Credence approached the table, examining the parchment with newfound interest. There's something familiar about these symbols, he murmured, tracing one particular rune. Where his finger touched, the ink shimmered briefly. Newt observed this interaction with fascination. Perhaps your magic responds to these ancient forms naturally. That connection might prove invaluable. Or dangerous, Lita cautioned. If these runes react to Credence's presence, they might alert Grindelwald to his location. The group fell silent, contemplating the implications. Outside, Paris continued its daily rhythm, oblivious to the machinations threatening both magical and non-magical worlds. Street vendors called their wares, children laughed as they chased each other, and cafes filled with patrons seeking morning refreshment. We need allies, Newt finally declared. People we can trust who possess knowledge about these ancient magical sites. I might know someone, Tina suggested. Nicholas Flamel lives here in Paris. His understanding of ancient magic is unparalleled. Jacob brightened at this suggestion. The alchemist? Even I've heard of him. His home isn't far, Tina continued. He maintains a low profile, but given the circumstances, I believe he would assist us. Newt nodded decisively. Lita, can you continue gathering information from Grindelwald's inner circle without arousing suspicion? Lita's expression hardened with resolve. I've maintained my position this long. He suspects nothing. Be careful, Newt cautioned, genuine concern evident in his voice despite their complicated history. Grindelwald's perceptiveness shouldn't be underestimated. After Lita departed, the group prepared for their visit to Nicholas Flamel. Credence hesitated at the doorway, uncertainty clouding his features. What if I'm recognized? My face might be known to Grindelwald's followers now. Tina produced a slender wand, performing a series of delicate movements. A simple disguise charm should suffice. It won't fool powerful wizards for long, but it will prevent casual recognition. Credence's appearance shifted subtly, his sharp features softening, hair lightening slightly, eyes changing from dark brown to hazel. The transformation wasn't dramatic, but provided enough difference to avoid immediate identification. Jacob whistled appreciatively. Handy trick. Wish I could do that when bill collectors come knocking. Their journey through Paris proceeded cautiously, taking meandering routes to avoid potential surveillance. Tina led them through lesser-known streets, occasionally checking reflective surfaces to ensure they weren't followed. The city's beauty provided stark contrast to their mission's gravity. Flowering window boxes, ornate architecture, and street musicians creating an atmosphere of normality they desperately wished to preserve. Nicholas Flamel's residence appeared unremarkable from outside. A narrow building wedged between two larger structures, its facade weathered by centuries. Tina approached the ancient door, knocking in a specific pattern. Several moments passed before they heard movement inside. The door creaked open, revealing an elderly man whose appearance belied the centuries he had lived. Though his face showed age, his eyes sparkled with vitality and intelligence. Porpentina Goldstein, he greeted, voice surprisingly strong. I sensed magical disturbances last night. I've been expecting visitors. Flamel welcomed them into his home, a space that defied its exterior dimensions. Bookshelves stretched impossibly high, filled with volumes whose bindings represented every historical period. Alchemical instruments occupied numerous surfaces, some bubbling with mysterious substances, others measuring imperceptible energies. You seek knowledge about Grindelwald's intentions, Flamel stated rather than asked, gesturing toward comfortable chairs that appeared from nowhere. How did you? Jacob began, then shook his head. Right. Famous alchemist. Probably knows everything. Flamel smiled gently. Not everything, my friend, but sufficient to understand the gravity of recent events. His gaze settled on Credence despite the disguised charm, particularly when an obscurial of unprecedented strength reveals himself. Credence tensed visibly. Newt placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We need your expertise regarding an ancient ritual site beneath Père Lachaise cemetery. Grindelwald plans to conduct a ceremony there tomorrow night. Flamel's expression darkened considerably. The Nexus Chamber. I had hoped its location remained forgotten. He moved to a particular bookshelf, extracting a volume bound in midnight blue leather. This sacred space was created by ancient practitioners who understood magic differently than we do today. They viewed magical energy as flowing through specific convergence points across the earth. He opened the book, revealing illustrations depicting a vast underground chamber with a central dais surrounded by 7 pillars. The nexus beneath Paris is particularly powerful. It was sealed centuries ago when several wizards attempted to harness its energy and were consumed by it. Consume, Jacob echoed nervously. Magic in its purest form isn't entirely compatible with physical existence, Flamel explained. Without proper protection and technique, channeling such concentrated power destroys the vessel. Tina studied the illustrations carefully. Then why would Grindelwald risk such a dangerous ritual? Because he believes he has found the key to controlling the Nexus. Flamel turned his penetrating gaze toward Credence. An obscurial represents magical energy in its most chaotic, unfiltered state. In theory, such a conduit could stabilize the Nexus long enough for someone to direct its power. Horror dawned on Newt's face. He plans to use Credence as a living channel for this energy, which would almost certainly destroy him in the process, Flamel confirmed gravely. Credence paled visibly, but determination replaced fear in his expression. Then we must stop him, regardless of personal risk. Agreed, Newt stated firmly. But not by sacrificing you. There must be another approach. Flamel contemplated silently before retrieving another book, this one ancient and fragile. The Nexus Chamber contains 7 pillars representing elemental forces. The ritual requires activating these sequentially using specific incantations. He indicated complex runic formulas beside each illustrated pillar. Disrupting this sequence would prevent the completion of the ritual. Can we destroy the chamber itself? Tina suggested. Flamel shook his head. The Nexus points are woven into the fabric of magical reality. Attempting to destroy, one would release uncontrolled energy on a catastrophic scale. Jacob, who had been absorbing information with remarkable composure despite its otherworldliness, suddenly straightened. What if we get there first? Change something about the place so his fancy ceremony doesn't work. All eyes turned to him. Newt's expression brightened considerably. Jacob, that's brilliant. We could modify the runic arrangements. Not enough to destabilize the chamber, but sufficient to render Grindelwald's specific ritual ineffective. Such alterations would require intimate knowledge of ancient runic magic, Flamel cautioned, though approval showed in his eyes. Fortunately, I possess such expertise. Would you accompany us? Tina asked hopefully. My physical form limits my ability to participate in direct confrontation, the ancient alchemist admitted. However, I can provide essential guidance and protective enchantments. They spent hours studying Flamel's texts, memorizing chamber layouts, and practicing pronunciation of complex incantations. The alchemist provided each of them with small crystal vials containing golden liquid. Elixir of my own creation, he explained. It temporarily enhances magical resistance, useful protection against ancient energies in the chamber. As afternoon faded into evening, Newt noticed Credence standing alone by a window, gazing at the Parisian sunset. He joined the young man, respecting his silence for several moments before speaking. How are you feeling about all this? Credence considered the question carefully. For years, I suppressed my true nature, believing it sinful and monstrous. Now I discover this power might serve a greater purpose, protecting others instead of harming them. Your ability isn't monstrous, Newt assured him. Just different and extraordinarily powerful. In the magical world, unusual gifts often inspire fear, but that fear reflects limitations in understanding, not flaws in the gift itself. Grindelwald recognized my potential immediately, Credence observed. He saw value where others saw only danger. That's his particular talent, Newt acknowledged. Identifying others' deepest desires and positioning himself as the path to fulfillment. But recognition isn't the same as respect. He views you as a tool, not a person deserving dignity. Credence nodded slowly. I understand that now. Tomorrow night, I'll fight not because he wants my power, but because I choose how that power is used. Their conversation was interrupted by Lita's unexpected return. Her usually immaculate appearance showed signs of haste. Hair slightly disheveled, cloak askew. Grindelwald has changed his plans, she announced without preamble. He's conducting the ritual tonight. His inner circle is already gathering at Père Lachaise. The atmosphere transformed instantly from studious preparation to urgent action. Tina immediately began organizing their equipment, while Newt consulted Flammel about expediting their countermeasures. Jacob, displaying remarkable adaptability, packed supplies they might need in the catacombs. Why the sudden change? Newt questioned Lita. After last night's confrontation, he fears further interference. He's convinced the ritual must proceed immediately. Lita hesitated before adding, and he's using Queenie Goldstein to enhance his efforts. Tina froze mid-motion. My sister? How? Her legilimency abilities. He's using her to identify any traitors among his followers and to anticipate potential opposition. Lita's expression conveyed genuine regret. She believes she's protecting those she loves. Jacob's face reflected heartbreak and hope simultaneously. She's there? We have to help her. We will, Newt promised. This changes our approach, but not our objective. Flammel provided last-minute instructions, illustrating critical points on a hastily drawn map. The catacombs have multiple entrances, but most are heavily warded. Your best approach is through this mausoleum. He indicated a specific location. It contains a concealed passage originally created as an emergency exit from the Nexus chamber. Will Grindelwald know about this entrance? Tina inquired. Unlikely. Its existence was recorded only in texts accessible to a select few alchemists through the centuries. With Flammel's guidance committed to memory and his protective elixirs secured, they prepared to depart. The ancient alchemist placed a hand on Newt's shoulder. Remember, the chamber's energy responds to intention as much as action. Maintain clarity of purpose, especially when surrounded by chaos. Their journey to Père Lachaise cemetery occurred under cover of encroaching darkness. The cemetery's grandeur assumed an ominous quality in the twilight. Elaborate monuments casting long shadows, marble angels seeming to watch their progress with hollow eyes. Lita led them along peripheral paths, avoiding the central areas where Grindelwald's supporters might be positioned as sentries. The mausoleum Flammel had identified stood in an older section, partially obscured by overgrown vegetation. Its classical architecture featured worn columns supporting a triangular pediment adorned with faded carvings. Tina performed detection spells, confirming no recent magical activities or surveillance enchantments. It appears Flammel was correct, she whispered. This entrance remains unknown to Grindelwald. Lita examined the mausoleum's sealed entrance. The passage mechanism requires activation. She traced specific patterns on the stone door, murmuring ancient phrases Flammel had taught them. The solid surface rippled like disturbed water before revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. I'll go first, Newt volunteered, illuminating his wand with a nonverbal lumos. The stairs wound downward in a tight spiral, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. Ancient magic permeated the passage, raising goosebumps on their skin. After descending what felt like hundreds of steps, they reached a horizontal tunnel reinforced with archways of fitted stone. Occasional niches contained remnants of long-extinguished torches and faded inscriptions in languages none of them recognized. The tunnel extended straight ahead, silent except for their cautious footsteps and the distant sound of water dripping. We must be directly beneath the cemetery now, Tina observed, her voice hushed despite the isolation. Lita consulted Flammel's map. The Nexus chamber should be approximately half a kilometer ahead. We'll likely encounter preliminary security measures before reaching it. As if summoned by her warning, the tunnel ahead shimmered with faint bluish light. Newt gestured for everyone to halt, examining the phenomenon carefully. Detection field, he determined, designed to alert those inside to approaching visitors. Credence stepped forward, studying the magical barrier with newfound awareness of his abilities. I can feel its pattern, he said softly. It's searching for specific magical signatures. Can we bypass it? Jacob asked, eyeing the barrier nervously. Newt considered their options. Attempting to dismantle it might trigger alarms. We need subtlety rather than force. Let me try something, Credence suggested with unexpected confidence. He extended his hands toward the barrier, closing his eyes in concentration. The energy field responded, rippling like disturbed water as it interacted with Credence's unique magical signature. Rather than fighting the barrier, Credence seemed to communicate with it, his energy harmonizing with the ancient protection. Gradually, a narrow opening formed in the detection field, just wide enough for single-file passage. Quickly, he urged, strain evident in his voice. I can't maintain this for long. They hurried through the opening, Lita passing last before Credence released his control. The barrier resumed its uniform appearance, giving no indication it had been temporarily breached. That was extraordinary, Newt remarked, impressed by Credence's intuitive manipulation of ancient magic. It felt natural, Credence explained, slightly breathless from the effort. Like speaking a language I didn't realize I knew. They continued forward with renewed caution, aware that the chamber itself lay ahead. The tunnel gradually widened, its walls increasingly adorned with elaborate carvings depicting magical rituals and mystical creatures. The air thrummed with energy, a subtle vibration felt rather than heard. The passage terminated at an immense circular door engraved with concentric rings of runes that slowly rotated in alternating directions. Unlike modern magical barriers, this entrance contained no conventional locking mechanism. Its security relied on principles predating contemporary wizardry. Lita examined the door with evident concern. This is more complex than Flammel described. The configuration has been altered. Grindelwald's work? Tina suggested. Possibly. Or perhaps the chamber itself has evolved over centuries of magical absorption. Newt studied the rotating runes, recognizing patterns mentioned in Flammel's texts. These outer rings represent elemental forces. The inner circles contain binding incantations meant to contain the Nexus energy. While they deliberated approaches, Jacob noticed something unusual at the door's perimeter. Hey, look at these small symbols here. They're different from the others, almost like a signature. Credence examined the markings Jacob indicated. These aren't rotating with the rest. They remain fixed regardless of the door's movement. Flammel mentioned creator marks, Newt recalled. Original signature elements incorporated by the chamber's architects. They might provide access independent of the main locking system. Through combined effort, they identified 7 distinctive marks positioned at equidistant points around the door's circumference. Following Flammel's instructions, they placed their hands simultaneously on these points, channeling focused intent rather than specific spells. The massive door responded immediately, the rotating runes accelerating briefly before freezing in position. Silent mechanisms engaged within the ancient stone, and the portal swung inward without a sound, revealing the Nexus chamber beyond. The space that greeted them exceeded expectations in both scale and grandeur. A vast circular chamber stretched before them, its ceiling lost in darkness above. 7 massive pillars arranged in a perfect circle surrounded a central dais that glowed with soft blue luminescence. The floor featured intricate inlaid patterns that subtly shifted and flowed like liquid silver. More alarmingly, they witnessed dozens of Grindelwald's followers positioned throughout the chamber, preparing components for the impending ritual. The dark wizard himself stood upon the central dais, directing activities with authoritative gestures. Beside him, looking both resolute and uncertain, stood Queenie Goldstein. The group quickly retreated into the tunnel entrance, processing what they'd witnessed. There are too many for direct confrontation, Tina whispered, anguish evident in her expression as she glimpsed her sister. We need to implement Flammel's counter-ritual immediately, Lita urged. Before they complete their preparations. Newt nodded in agreement. We'll split up. Tina and I will approach the northwestern pillars. Lita, you and Credence take the eastern side. Jacob, I'll create a distraction if needed, the Muggle volunteered, his determination unwavering despite obvious fear. Their plan established, they consumed Flammel's protective elixir. The golden liquid spread warmth throughout their bodies, creating a subtle shimmering barrier just above their skin. Temporary armor against the chamber's raw magical energies. They entered the chamber separately, using concealment charms and the natural shadows between pillars for cover. The followers were so focused on their preparations that initial infiltration proceeded undetected. Newt and Tina successfully reached the first pillar, where they began carefully modifying runic arrangements according to Flammel's instructions. Across the chamber, Lita and Credence made similar progress at their assigned position. The modifications were subtle, not enough to destabilize the Nexus itself, but sufficient to prevent Grindelwald from channeling its power as intended. Their intervention might have succeeded undetected if not for Queenie's unique abilities. Despite the mental defenses they maintained, the collective concentration required for their delicate work created distinctive thought patterns. The Legilimens suddenly stiffened beside Grindelwald, her eyes widening. We're not alone, she whispered. They're here, trying to interfere with the ritual. Grindelwald's reaction was immediate and decisive. "Find them," he commanded his followers. "The ceremony cannot be delayed." Chaos erupted as search parties fanned throughout the chamber. Newt and Tina abandoned concealment, focusing instead on completing their modifications before they could be stopped. Leda and Credence did likewise, their hands moving with practiced precision across ancient stone surfaces. Jacob, seeing their cover blown, implemented his promised distraction with remarkable creativity. Using items from Newt's case, he released a swarm of enchanted butterflies that filled the air with blinding luminescence, confusing and disorienting Grindelwald's followers. The diversionary tactic bought precious moments, allowing completion of the counter-ritual at 4 pillars before defensive action became necessary. Spells flew across the chamber as Grindelwald's supporters engaged the intruders. Tina dueled brilliantly, her aura training evident in each precise movement. Amidst the growing battle, Credence found himself face-to-face with Grindelwald. The dark wizard's expression combined rage and covetous desire. "You continue to resist your destiny," he snarled. "Your power wasted defending those who will never truly accept you." "You're wrong," Credence responded, newfound conviction strengthening his voice. "I've found people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide them." Their confrontation intensified as Grindelwald abandoned persuasion for force. He unleashed devastating spells that Credence countered with increasingly controlled manifestations of his obscurial energy. The chamber's ambient magic responded to their duel, swirling patterns on the floor accelerating and brightening. Across the chamber, Tina fought her way toward Queenie, desperate to reach her sister. "You don't understand what you're helping him do," she called out. "This ritual will harm countless innocent people." Queenie's expression reflected internal conflict. "He promised a world where I could be with Jacob openly, where we wouldn't have to hide. At what cost?" Tina demanded, deflecting a spell from another follower. "Look around you. Is this the future you want?" Jacob, hearing this exchange, abandoned his position to approach Queenie directly, an act of tremendous courage given the magical battle raging around them. "I never wanted this," he said simply. "I just wanted you exactly as you are." While these personal dramas unfolded, Newt and Leda continued modifying the remaining pillars, working separately to cover more ground. The chamber's energy became increasingly unstable as competing magical influences clashed, Grindelwald's intended ritual versus their sabotage efforts. The culmination approached as Newt reached the final pillar. Understanding dawned in Grindelwald's eyes as he recognized their strategy. With furious determination, he broke away from his duel with Credence, directing his full power toward preventing Newt from completing the counter-ritual. "Stop him," Grindelwald commanded his followers. A barrage of spells converged on Newt's position, forcing him to abandon the pillar temporarily. In this crucial moment, Leda made a decisive choice. Seeing Newt under attack, she changed course, sprinting toward the final pillar herself. "Finish the others," she called to him. "I'll complete this one." Grindelwald recognized the threat and redirected his attack toward Leda. She established protective enchantments, but knew they wouldn't hold against his power for long. With unwavering focus, she began the final modifications. Credence, witnessing Leda's vulnerability, moved to intercept Grindelwald. Their magical energies collided spectacularly, the chamber's ambient power amplifying both forces. The central dais erupted with brilliant light, responding to the conflict occurring within its domain. Throughout the chamber, the modified pillars began resonating with altered frequencies, disrupting Grindelwald's carefully planned ritual. Sensing imminent failure, the dark wizard's fury manifested as pure destructive force. "If I cannot harness this power," he declared, "then no one shall benefit from it." His spell struck the central dais, attempting to destabilize the entire nexus. The chamber trembled ominously, ceiling fragments raining down as ancient magic responded violently to the assault. "He's trying to collapse the chamber," Tina shouted. "Everyone needs to evacuate immediately." Most of Grindelwald's followers fled toward the main entrance, panic overwhelming loyalty. Queenie hesitated momentarily before Jacob grasped her hand. "Please," he pleaded simply. Her resistance crumbled, and she allowed him to lead her toward safety. Leda completed the final modifications, just as the chamber's deterioration accelerated. "It's done," she called out triumphantly. "The ritual is neutralized." Grindelwald, recognizing defeat, directed one final vengeful attack toward Credence before disapparating with his closest lieutenants. The spell caught Credence unprepared, sending him crashing against a pillar. Newt rushed to Credence's side while Tina ensured Jacob and Queenie reached the exit safely. The chamber continued destabilizing, magical energy discharging in unpredictable bursts. "We need to leave now," Tina shouted above the growing tumult. Supporting the injured Credence between them, Newt and Tina made their way toward the exit where Lita waited, maintaining protective enchantments against falling debris. They reached the tunnel just as massive sections of the ceiling collapsed behind them. Their ascent through the catacombs was desperate and chaotic, the tunnels themselves destabilizing as the Nexus Chamber's magic dissipated. They emerged into the cemetery as dawn broke over Paris, the ground beneath them finally ceasing its ominous trembling. Exhausted but triumphant, they gathered beside the mausoleum. Queenie and Jacob embraced tearfully, their reunion bittersweet amid the aftermath of destruction. Credence, though injured, stood straighter than before, a new confidence visible in his bearing. "We prevented Grindelwald from harnessing the Nexus," Newt observed. "But he escaped to fight another day." "Today's victory matters," Tina asserted firmly. "We protected countless lives and proved his vision can be opposed successfully." As morning light strengthened across the ancient cemetery, they contemplated the path forward. Grindelwald remained at large, his ideology still seductive to many within the wizarding world. Yet they had demonstrated the power of unity against darkness, a testament to friendship, courage, and unwavering conviction. The battle was far from over, but in this moment of hard-won triumph, hope flourished among them. Whatever challenges awaited, they would face them together, strengthened by the bonds forged in adversity and illuminated by the light of shared purpose. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Your time and support mean everything, and I truly appreciate each and every one of you who has listened to this story. If this tale has captured your imagination, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to be part of even more thrilling adventures. The road ahead is filled with countless more stories, some daring, some mysterious, and others that will linger in your thoughts long after they end. So stay tuned, for this is only the beginning. Until next time, keep the wonder alive, and I look forward to sharing many more unforgettable tales with you.